Hey guys, and welcome to my tutorial, the complete tutorial on graphs for noobs. Um, this is for anybody who has no idea what graphs are or wants to know how to make graphs on Excel. It's funny that I'm not making a tutorial on how to make a good YouTube video, and I'm not making a tutorial on, let's say, PowerPoint, because I actually wanted to do the PowerPoint with huge exploding titles and stuff that basically is frowned upon in the professional community. However, in Microsoft Excel 2007, I unfortunately don't even know how to do the transitions. So anyway, on to the tutorial. Okay, so the talking points. We're going to have to go through some definitions, which you have to know if you want to understand graphs. We want to go. We want to talk about what a graph is, types of graphs and their uses, and then finally, I want to introduce you to doing graphs on Excel. Almost all the graphs that you see in this presentation, I made personally using Excel, and Excel is a very powerful tool. It's easy to make graphs using Excel, especially Excel 2007. So uh, you should learn it. All colleges and many high schools require that you know how to use it. Some definitions. What is data? Data is I got this definition from Simple English Wikipedia. It defined it in quotes itself actually as pieces of information. So yeah, variable. A variable is a piece of information that can change its value. We will talk a little bit about that later. An independent variable changes, but it doesn't depend on anything except the laws of the universe and the tester's whim. So let's say you want a time. Time only depends on the laws of the universe. And a tester's whim. You want to flip a coin twice or three times. That's all depending on you, and that would be the independent variable. The dependent variable changes based on the independent variable. So as you decide to flip the coin more and more times, the probability of you getting at least one head or at least one tail increases. So that's the dependent variable. It's very important that you understand all these definitions, because throughout my explanation I'm going to talk as if you are already completely familiar with these definitions. So if you do not, so you might want to, if you don't, if I'm explaining and suddenly you say, what the hell is that? Look back at the definitions. Or you might even want to write this stuff down. It's very important. What is a graph? A graph is a picture that is used to make a set of data easier to understand. There are many types of graphs used, including the line graph, the circle graph, and the bar graph. And I'll explain what each one is for. Um, so if you look at this graph, this is a circle graph. It can also be called a pie chart. This one isn't made in Excel, and neither is this crap. Anyway, so types of graphs. Line or scatter graph. It can be used to discover a pattern in the dependent variable based on the change in the independent variable. I made a typo there. The It can be used to discover a pattern in the dependent variable based on the change in the independent variable. So let's look at the graph that I made. I do not connect it with a line. You do not have to, but you can. It's very possible to. I don't think it would have made a difference. So look, the graph says, how tall am I when I stand on books? I am about 5 foot 8 inches or 68 inches tall when I'm not standing on any book. So now let's just pretend that every single book is 1 inch tall, which is very unlikely, by the way. So look, the dependent variable, the dependent variable is this, height in inches. Okay, it depends on the number of books I'm standing on. This is the independent variable. So as I stand on more books, my height would increase. Makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? And that's, you can add a line through it. It doesn't really matter. Bar graph. A bar graph can be used when no independent variable has any relation to any other independent variable. But it can also be used as a substitute for the line graph. A great example of this would be the Haida graph, which water resources engineers use. I've seen Haida graphs that are line graphs, and I've seen Haida graphs that are bar graphs. It's a measure of rainfall, but you're not interested in that, are you? So let's look at this graph that I made. For some reason, when I try to graph it on Microsoft Excel 2007, it comes out sideways. Usually, I'm actually used to vertical bars, but oh well, it's what it is, right? So, let's see. What do third grade boys like? So this is actually the independent variable. Random things. So I just made up a couple of random things. This is not meant to be taken seriously. It's a hypothetical, made up questionnaire type scenario. Let's look at this. Video games, girls, tattoos, monkeys, cheese. Okay? Um, if you look at this graph, you can tell that um, almost all boys at age 8 or 9 like video games, and very few boys like girls or tattoos. This might change when they grow older, but that's how it is. Okay, uh, I completely made this information up. Don't take it seriously. Um, but that's how you use a bar graph. That's an example of a bar graph. Circle graph. It can also be called a pie graph. It clearly shows how popular or frequent one thing is compared to another. So I took the same set of data from the last slide and I made a circle graph out of it. What third grade boys like. It just it's just a more visual representation sometimes than the bar graph. Alright, double bar graphs. It can be a double line graph or it can be a double bar graph. It doesn't really matter. But the main thing is it's used to compare the growth of two different groups or two different individuals. Let's look at the graph that I have. We have the independent variable, we have the dependent variable, and we have two subjects, the girl and the boy. Okay, so from the graph we can see that at age 5, the girl and the boy are exactly the same height in inches. About 36 inches tall. And at age 10, the girl is taller than the boy. Why is the girl taller than the boy? That doesn't matter in this case. You might know it, you might want to answer it, I don't really care. But that's what the graph says. At age 15, the boy catches up and surpasses the girl in height. Now, I made a mistake here again. Over here, it says that the girl surpasses the boy again at age 20. Okay, I don't know, maybe. Maybe for this example, it might be true. But that's not how I intended it. I made a mistake in making the graph. It happens. It's very easy to change. So that's that. So that's the double bar graph. Alright, so now you have a basic idea of how to use graphs. Now I'm going to put you through the Excel tutorial. I'm going to pretend that you have no idea how to use Excel at all. So I'm going to start from the top. So you go through to Microsoft Office Excel 2007. You click it and it opens. So what is this? It's a series of cells. It's for some reason called a workbook. So by clicking the left and right arrow keys, I can move this around when it's not focused on one cell. Now, but if I double click on one cell, okay? Once I double click on this cell, I can't, oh, yes I can, but a lot of times it's necessary to press the tab key, which is right next to the Q on your keyboard, in order to move the cell around. And it's easiest to press enter. When you press enter, the cells move downward. You can enter basically anything into these cells. It can be dates, regular words, it can be numbers. And really, Excel acts as a calculator for you. It will help you with your calculations. Let's say equals 2 plus 3. It will give you a 5. Now let's just be careful here, because if you put equals and you decide to move over, you decide to press the arrow key to move, it's not going to move for you. Sometimes I get very frustrated because this happens. It's going to, when you press the equal sign, it's going to assume that you want it to equal another cell. So it's important that you press the tab, which is right to the left of the Q key on the keyboard, in order to get it away. Or if you press Excel, if you make any changes that you don't like, and you don't want those changes saved onto your cell, all you have to do is press the ESC key. It's called escape. It's actually at the top left corner of your keyboard, and whatever change you made, it can be erased. Okay? So let's make a very, very simple graph. Okay? So every graph starts with a chart. You can't say, I want to make a graph because I'm too lazy to formulate a chart. That doesn't work, okay? So you must have the data. You can't fudge. You can fudge a chart, just not on Excel. And if you can't fudge a graph on Excel unless you want to fudge numbers, which I guess is possible. Let me eat some fruits first. I hope the YouTube doesn't freeze up on me because this video is too big. I don't know. So, alright, no equals. So let's say I type in the independent variable, which is always the left side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay? Now, I type in the dependent variable, 5, 10,